Yeah, hi guys. Good afternoon. And this will be our session 3 on Terraform. Okay. So in previous session, we have already seen how to create a basic template. What is Terraform? What is provider? What is state file? Okay. So we'll work on the Terraform variables. Okay. How many type of variables are there? How we can provide the variables and what is state file? I mean, in detail regarding that. Okay. So let me know if you have any questions. Okay. So hopefully you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. So here we have one main.tf, that is our two providers we are using. One is local and one is random. Okay. What random is doing? It is trying to generate one random name for us. Okay. So apart from that, we have one more file that is variables. Okay. So in variables, we are trying to pass three variables, that is file name, that and one is content and one is prefix. Okay. For this main.tf. Okay. So instead of hard coding, this is one of the best practices what we can follow. Okay. So as part of variables, if I'll open this, so we have five different type of variables what we can pass. Let me copy variables.tf. This will be Windows. Okay. Okay, so we have five different type of variables which can be used in Terraform. Okay, so let me copy. Where is our Terraform? Okay, this is our Terraform, right? Okay, so one is by using variables.tf file, means we need to declare our variable here. For example, the name of the variable is file name, and what we need to display the default value. Default value will be, file name will be, for example, pets.txt. Okay, if you want to provide any, let me in double quotes, this should be in double quotes. Okay, if you want to provide any type, what is this type? This is string, number, or tuple, list. What is this type? pets.txt. This is string. Okay, and then description. Description can be anything. I mean, any user understanding person, whatever we want to give, we can provide that name over there. Okay, file name for pets. Okay, so this is one use case. I mean, we are using variables.tf, and I'm declaring all my variables in variable.tf file. Okay, here we can have default, this is mandatory, type and description are not mandatory. Okay, type will depends upon what type of variable we are using, whether it is string, numeric, boolean value, or some other values. Okay, description is also optional, which is used only to define or describe why we are using that variable. Okay, according I think yes. Okay, similar to this, we have content. The default value for the content will be, for example, I love cats. Okay, I am not defining any type and description because that are optional, so let me ignore this. And then prefix default value I want to provide as, sorry, I want to provide this as system. Okay, so I have passed three variables over here. Okay, so we have three variables. So now if I'll execute Terraform, apply, what it will do, this will pick the variables from this variables.tf file and pass over here. Okay, in our main.tf file, what how we are calling our variables, with the name called variable dot and then the variable name whatever we are defining. So always try to match the variable name with your variable type. ఆ రెండు నేమ్స్ సిమిలర్ ఉంటే ఇట్ విల్ బి వెరీ ఈజీ ఫర్ అస్ టు అండర్స్టాండ్. ఇక్కడ ఒక పేరు ఇచ్చి ఇఫ్ యూ ఆర్ డిఫైనింగ్ టూ డిఫరెంట్ నేమ్స్, వన్ ఓవర్ హియర్ అండ్ డిఫరెంట్ నేమ్ ఓవర్ హియర్, దెన్ ఇట్ విల్ బి వెరీ డిఫికల్ట్ ఫర్ అస్ టు మ్యాప్ దట్. మనకే డిఫికల్ట్ అయిపోతుంది. ఓకే, సో ఆల్వేస్ ట్రై టు keep a match between these names. Okay, so if I'll provide yes, then what this will do, this will help us to create one file. Created. Okay, what happened, why it is taking, instead of pets.txt it is been taking as wild.txt. I love cats. Okay. Sorry,
TF state file లో pets.txt
no, నీ వాయిస్ క్లియర్ లేదు, కెన్ యూ రిపీట్?
Terraform state file లో pets.wild.txt అని సేవ్ అయి ఉందేమో అందుకని.
కాదు, స్టేట్ ఫైల్ లో ఉంటే కూడా అది రీప్లేస్ అవ్వాలి కదా. ప్రాబ్లం ఏమైందంటే ఐ వాజ్ టెస్టింగ్ విత్ సమ్ అదర్ వేరియబుల్స్ యాజ్ వెల్. ఏమైందంటే బిఫోర్ దిస్ సెషన్ ఐ హావ్ యూజ్డ్ దిస్, ఇఫ్ యు సీ ఐ హావ్ యూజ్డ్ వన్ మోర్ టైప్ ఆఫ్ వేరియబుల్. సో అందుకోసమే బై డిఫాల్ట్ ఇట్ ఈస్ పికింగ్ దట్.
ఓకే, అంటే ఇప్పుడు మనం అక్కడ మీరు ప్రీవియస్ గా చేసినప్పుడు wild.txt అని ఇచ్చినారు కదా, ఇప్పుడు మళ్ళీ మనం వేరియబుల్స్ పాస్ చేసినప్పుడు pets.txt అని ఇస్తే అది ఆల్రెడీ ప్లేస్ అయి ఉంటుంది కదా అన్న.
ఎస్ ఎస్ ఎస్. సో బేసికలీ ఏమైందంటే let me come over there. Okay, so అది కూడా ఈ సెషన్ ఒక పార్టే. సో యాజ్ ఆఫ్ వాట్ హ్యాపెండ్, ఐ హావ్ పాస్డ్ pets.txt, but as I said we have different variables. Okay, I was using the environmental variables. I have passed environmental variables. Okay, and by default Terraform was choosing the environmental variable. Okay, so let me talk about this. As of now, just assume that we have got what we were expecting. For example, here assume that we have passed as wild.txt only. Okay, so now if I execute Terraform apply, what will happen, the changes will be made. Okay, and we can see one file called wild.txt as per the variable what we have passed. Okay, the content will be I love cats and the prefix will be Mr. Okay, here you will see where is our Mr. said Mr. Monos. Okay, so this is one way of defining our variables where we can configure in variables.tf file. Okay, and the another way is, if suppose we have just declared empty variables declared this now. I have just declared the variables, but there is no default values, there is no content. Okay, if I'm trying to execute Terraform apply, Terraform will ask the user to enter the values. Terraform will automatically ask the user to enter the values, and these type of variables are these type of variables are called as interactive mode, where the user will be entering the values at the runtime. Whenever we are trying to execute our configuration file, then the Terraform will be asking the user to enter the value. Okay, so this is one type of variables what we can pass. Okay, one is by variables.tf file, one is by interactive mode, CLI. Okay, and third part is command line flags. Command line flags means instead of passing them into variables.tf file, or instead of asking the user to enter the inputs, what I can do, I can declare my variables, for example, in this way, where, okay, and then what variable needs to be configured, for example, this one. Let me copy this. Okay, -var flag by using -variable flags. Okay, -variable flag .txt. Okay, the prefix will be Mr. and then one more variable. We have three variables, right? So one is file name, one will be our content. What can be the content at this point of time? I want to change the content to I hate cats. Okay, so this is one type of variables what we can pass. So these variables we called as command line flags. Okay, we are using the flag called -var. I don't do like about it, so this will throw errors. So let me remove one. If I hit enter, okay, it is accepting the variables from the command line flags itself. Okay, if I'll open the world.txt, here I can see I hate cats. Okay, so this is one type of variables. And then fourth one, we have environmental variables. These are very important. Okay, the enduku important ante basically if we have any password credentials, we don't want to store them in the variables.tf file, right? In this case, we can use environmental variables. Similarly, what we have done when installing Terraform, right? Environmental variables we have passed. Okay, and export command will only work on Linux machines. In case if you are using Terraform in Linux, then we can use export. Okay, whereas for Windows we need to use set-item command. Okay, and then path, environmental variables, the variables should be in this way: tf underscore var underscore the variable name. Okay, and then the value, what should be the value. So for example, let me copy this. First I need to export my variables. Okay, let me destroy this first. Okay, Terraform, spelling mistakes, Terraform destroy. What was the content? I hate cats. Prefix was Mr. Yes. I can destroy. Now we don't have any files created. Okay. So now I want to use the export, global environmental variables as my variables. In this case, let me first copy this. These are temporary, guys. Once if you have rebooted your machine or if you have closed and open our terminals, right, then this will get collapsed. Okay, so we need to set these environmental variables are on a temporary basis. Okay, so here I am configuring that my file name should be while.txt. Okay, and one more variable, that is content. We need to declare this. Okay, variables.tf file declare shell, and then we can change. I love dogs in this case. Okay, and then we have one more, that is prefix. Different value. This time what I will do, the random name will be miss. Okay, if I'll execute now, if I will execute Terraform apply, then Terraform will pick the variables from these environmental variables by default. It will not ask for any user, or we are not passing the command line flags over there. Okay, if I'll do yes, see, one variable prefix we can see miss.toad. Okay, and well.tx we can see I love cats. Oh, sorry, I love dogs. Okay, so this is one way of passing our variables via environmental variables. And the last way is we can similar to variables.tf, which will automatically load, where we need to create a file with this extension start.auto.tfvats or start.auto.tfvats.json. This can be either in JSON format or this name. Any name can be configured. If we are trying to save this file in some other name, then we need to pass the variable file name at the runtime. Okay, and same configurations, variables.tf on a file. Okay, it will automatically load our file by Terraform. So these are the different, I want you guys to execute this. Okay, this is similar, so I will not be executing. So we have 5 different type of variables what can be passed in our Terraform scripts. Okay, now coming to the point, as we have seen just now, right? So in the initial itself, we have been seeing some different file has been created. Okay, why? For example, assume that, okay, for example, here I am passing my default value. Okay, I am passing my values in variables.tf file. Okay, this will be pets.txt. Okay, and the content will be default content will be hello world. Okay, and then the prefix will be default value will be, okay. So I'm passing my variables over here, okay, and at the same time I've passed my variables as part of environmental variables కూడా pass చేసిన. My prefix is miss and tfvar dot content is dogs and my file name is while.txt. So I have passed two variables. Here one we have defined in variables.tf. One I have already set my environmental variables as well. So let me delete this. Okay, let me clean up this. State the backup files and everything. State file also I want to delete. Okay, Terraform init undani because I will be using the same power plugins. Okay, so now in this case, if you'll see, I have used two variables. Variables.tf lo already defined. Okay, and I am also using environmental variables. Now at the runtime, as well, I am using the flags. Okay, even at runtime I am using command line flags. Okay, file name is while, right? So instead of while, let me change this to let me change this as CLI. Okay, because we are using CLF, command line flags. Okay, and the content will be CLF. Okay, prefix, let it be. Okay, so now if you see this, we are passing three variables. One, I have defined my variables in .tf. One, I have passed my variables in environmental variables already configured, and again I'm trying to pass my variables at runtime by using command line flags. Okay, so for same configuration file, we are passing three different type of variables. So now what will happen? Subhiram ready? అప్పుడేమో చెప్తుంటే కదా.
ఇప్పుడు ఫైల్ లేదు కదా మన దగ్గర, బ్యాకప్ ఫైల్ లేదు కదా.
ఇప్పుడు చూద్దులే ఏమైతుంది. Okay, understood, right? Use case. What's happening? Okay, so if I'll try to execute this, so let us see which one will get created. If I'll execute, yes, clf.txt has been created. Means why? clf.txt, where we have passed that was our command line flags. Okay, basically ఏమైతుందంటే, even if you are trying to pass multiple variables at the runtime, these variables will also have the precedence order. Precedence order means their priority, what needs to be picked from Terraform, which will have the highest priority. Okay, based upon that precedence order, the variables will be picked or override. Okay, so if I'll open this, let me open my notes. Okay, so we have variable definition precedence. If you use multiple ways to define variables with the same file, then Terraform uses variable definition precedence, and then it will execute this. So this is our precedence order. First, it will try to pick the environmental variables. And what we have used, our environmental variables, I have configured as while.txt. Okay, because three file names are different. That's the reason I will be talking about this use case. Okay, initially what Terraform did, it has pick up the environmental variables and the file name was considered as while.txt, and then as per the Terraform .tf, that means variables file. So pets.txt has been overridden. Ante while.txt value pets.txt has been overridden, and then what it did, it was checking for the .auto.tf file. This is not available in our case, so we don't have any. We don't have any variables on this. Okay, and the last one was -var flag. The command line flags. So that's the reason these two environmental variables and tfvar variables has been overridden by environmental variables. So try to keep a note on this. Okay, let me share this one as well. Okay, understood? This is very important. ఇవన్నీ మీరు ఇంటర్వ్యూలో మాట్లాడితే it will be a very, this will impact your interview status for sure. Okay, even if he is not asking, then if anyone is trying to ask you what are different variables available in Terraform, then you need to answer all these type of variables. అప్పుడు ఏమైతుంది, it will be a good impression. This will change the complete interview will be in your favor. Okay, guys, any questions? Do you have any questions? Yes or no? ఎస్ అయినా చెప్పండి, నో అయినా చెప్పండా.
లేదన్నా,
అర్థమైందా?
అర్థమైంది.
మండే రోజు అడుగుతా ఇదే మళ్ళీ అందరికి. ఓకే, చలో.
ఓకే అన్న.
టెరాఫామ్ మంచి ప్రాక్టీస్ చేయండి, బికాస్ దిస్ ఈస్ వెరీ పవర్ఫుల్. ఇప్పుడు వస్తున్న ఇంటర్వ్యూస్ లో అందరూ ఎవ్రీ వన్ ఈస్ ఆస్కింగ్ అబౌట్ టెరాఫామ్. ఓకే, ట్రై టు డూ మోర్ ప్రాక్టీస్ చేయండి. అది రాసిన ఫైల్ అగైన్ అండ్ అగైన్ ట్రై టు రైట్, సో దట్ it will stuck in your minds. Okay, so this was something what I wanted to explain. Okay, and now let me destroy this. I want to destroy this. Okay, I want to destroy this. Sorry, spelling DSTROY. Okay, now we don't have any wild or pet dot in any file. Okay, now okay, we have these variables, right? Okay, so let me save and let me close this, so that I don't want my environmental variables to be replicating. Okay, now let me try to open my Visual Studio again. Open with code. Okay, here we have our same, I mean main.tf and variables.tf. Okay, now let me show you something. For example, if I'm trying to use Terraform apply, and yes, okay, two resources has been created, that is pets.tf, because as of now it is picking up from variables.tf. Environmental variables eliminating. The moment I have closed the session, that has been collapsed. Okay, so now we have a race. Let me destroy again. నేను అసలు చూపించాల్సిందే డిలీట్ చేసేసిన, క్లియర్ చేసేసిన. ఓకే, సో లెట్ మీ డిస్ట్రాయ్ DSTRO. ఓకే, yes, deleted. If you see, even while deleting or while creating, here this is, I mean, you guys are aware of the life cycle process, right? So before destroying, and then it is trying to create. Okay, so here if you see, it is trying to create one random name each and every time. The moment I am trying to execute my Terraform script, it is trying to create one random name. Okay, so now let us talk about that. Okay, so in, let me close this. Variables.tf is not required, because let us use the same variables.tf file. Okay, so in this file, here we are using how many different providers we are using? How many type of providers we are using? We are using two type of providers. One is local and one is random. Okay, so every time I am executing this block, it is trying to create one random name, right? Okay, let me delete these variables as well. I don't want variables as well. Okay, now let me use the file name text.txt content. My cat name is dash. Prefix will be Mr. And we have hard coded our variables. I mean, sorry, our template, our main configuration file. Okay, so now what my requirement is, how can we use the output? I mean, whatever ID it is being generating, how can I pass this as a variable in my content? Okay, so my cat name is my cat name should be the ID, whatever ID it is trying to display, right? So that should be my cat name. How can we map multiple resources? Okay, or else how can we use multiple resource attributes as the references? Means ఇక్కడ ఉన్న attribute, ఇక్కడ ఏదైతే attribute generate అవుతుందో ID అనే attribute, that should be passed in my local file. My cat name should be random. It should automatically pass the ID which whatever it is trying to generate. Okay, in this case what I can do is I can use this variable. Okay, let me copy this section as well as part of notes. Okay, here what I am trying to do is okay, now let me show you this. Okay, how can we write? For example, my cat name is, then variables how we will be calling by dollar. Okay, and then the provider name, whatever provider we are trying to use, provider underscore pet dot pet name dot id. Pet name is our name, logical name of Terraform. Okay, and this will be my variable. Okay, so in curly brackets, because this will be turned into the id and it will pick as a variable. My cat name is, sorry, my cat name is, okay, and then this should be picked from this particular section. Means, sorry, provider ఎందుకు పెట్టాను నేను, random, right? Name of my provider is random underscore pet. Okay, so now let us see. The content of the file should be with id, whatever id it is trying to display. Okay, Terraform apply. Yes, but you say id is Mr. Mastif. Okay, I mean this is what it has been generated, Mr. Mastif. If I open pets.txt, see my cat name is Mr. Mastif. Okay, so this is how we can create the dependencies, resource dependencies. I am trying to pick the name of which has been created by this resource to this resource. Random pet resource.
సార్ ఇది లైన్ బై లైన్ చెక్ చేసుకుంటూ పోతే డాలర్ దగ్గరకు వచ్చినాక కిందికి అంటే మళ్ళీ దీనిలోకి వెళ్ళి ఇది ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ చేసి అప్పుడు మళ్ళీ పైకి వస్తుంది.
నో 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 ఫస్ట్ ఏం చేస్తుంది అంటే, ఓకే, నువ్వు అడిగిన క్వశ్చన్ మంచిదే, బట్ ఏంటంటే ఫస్ట్ దిస్ విల్ ట్రై టు క్రియేట్ ద random underscore pet name, because Terraform will understand there is one dependency. ఎందుకంటే ఈ పేరు without this name how can we create the content? Is there any possibility to create the content? ఇక్కడ కూడా చూస్తే మీరు ఇక్కడ అవుట్పుట్ లో చూస్తే ఫస్ట్ ఇట్ ఈస్ ట్రైంగ్ టు క్రియేట్ ద random underscore pet and then it is creating the local file based upon the id generation, because we have passed the reference of this variable, this particular resource key as a reference we have passed. So Terraform is smart enough to understand what needs to be created first, what needs to be created second. Got it, Abhinav? Okay,
అక్కడ డాలర్ లేకపోతే ఫస్ట్ అదే క్రియేట్ అయ్యేది అంతే కదా?
అంతే. So Terraform will automatically understand what is dependent on which resource. A resource is depending on which another resource. Okay, so this kind of behavior is called as explicit behavior. Not, sorry, implicit behavior. Basically, by default Terraform is executing, right? So this type of behavior we call as explicit behavior. Terraform will automatically understand. In case nu cheppinattu, if you want to tell Terraform that this particular resource is dependent on random pet resource, in this case what we can do is we can add implicit behavior. I mean I can use the module or module called depends on. depends on random underscore pet dot pet name. ఈ particular module పైన, I mean this particular resource పైన our resource local file resource is dependent. This kind of behavior we can, I mean we can use the module called depends underscore. If you want you can pass, if you don't want we can ignore, because Terraform will automatically understand what needs to be executed first, what needs to be executed second. Terraform lo choose మీరు, if you see Terraform templates, Terraform is very smart. Okay, even if we are not passing, then it will automatically understand which needs to be created first. If you want to pass, we have the option called depends underscore on. If you don't want to pass, then Terraform will automatically understand. Okay, clear? Okay, when adding depends on, this we call as explicit dependency, means we are telling Terraform that this is depend upon random underscore pet dot pet name resource. If I'm removing this, then this will called as implicit behavior. Basically, if you are not passing anything, Terraform will understand by default. Okay, try to create, I mean try to use the depends on as well and try to execute. The syntax is same what I have shown just now. Okay, this is one case of dependency. Okay, so ఇది ఎప్పుడు యూజ్ అవుతుంది అంటే, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఇన్ AWS, if you are trying to create one VPC and you are trying to create one subnet in which VPC that subnet should be created, at that point of time it will be very useful for us to define the resource dependencies attributes. అంటే అప్పుడే కదా VPC ID ఉండాలి కదా మా దగ్గర, ఈ సబ్నెట్ ఇక్కడ క్రియేట్ అవ్వాలంటే in which VPC we want to create our subnet, right? That will be asking even in the manual process. So at that point of time these attributes will be very useful for us. Clear? Yes or no?
Okay.
నిద్రపోయి రాదే తిని మంచిగా అందరూ. నేను తినలేదా, నాది అయిపోతే పోదామని, ఇది అయిపోతే పోయి తిని వస్తా. ఓకే, అండర్స్టూడ్? In case if you have any questions, then let me know, guys. Okay, so this is one, and then okay, so now let me also remove this, even this is also not required. Okay, okay, let us use the same template, let us use. So we have one command called Terraform output. If I hit enter, so are we able to see anything? No. So basically Terraform output command will help us to get all the outputs. Ante ID anedi edaithe, I mean we are seeing one ID generated, right? So if you want that to be displayed on the screen, in this case we can use output flag, I mean output blocks as well in Terraform. Okay, so how to use them? Where is that output? Okay, okay, output variables will be used to display the variables, I mean the output of the resources, whatever output we have been declared, that can be used with the help of output variables. Okay, so now let me create the output variables. Output, and then what can be the name? Guys, మీరు ఎప్పుడైతే వర్కౌట్ చేస్తారో try to write them. Okay, do not try to copy and paste. ఇక్కడ డాక్యుమెంట్ లో ఉంది కదా అని కాపీ పేస్ట్ చేస్తే మీరు నేర్చుకోలేరు. Try to write it on your own. Okay, value and what we have. Okay, value from where it is trying to generate, from this resource, right? So sorry, random underscore pet dot pet name. Okay, so provider and then the logical name what we are using. Okay, and then the output output will be ID, right? So I will be using this. So if I'll execute Terraform apply equal to yes. See, pet name Mr. Mustaf. It is been displayed in outputs. అంతకుముందు వచ్చింది అది రాలేదు. Since I have provided output, for example, if you want to see multiple outputs, what we can do, we need to write one more output block over here. ఎన్ని అవుట్పుట్స్ కావాలనుకుంటే అన్ని అవుట్పుట్ బ్లాక్స్ we need to define in our template. So as of now we have only one output. That's the reason I am defining only one. Okay, so in order to see this output every time, it is not mandatory to execute your template. ప్రతిసారి కాన్ఫిగరేషన్ నేను ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ చేస్తే అవుట్పుట్ చూడాలంటే దట్ ఈస్ నాట్ ఏ గుడ్ ప్రాక్టీస్. ఓకే, సో వాట్ ఐ కెన్ డూ, ఐ కెన్ యూజ్ ద కమాండ్ terraform output. Okay, it will display pet underscore name is Mr. Mustaf. Okay, if you have multiple outputs, then we can see multiple outputs. Okay, understood? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, bro.
Okay, and what's next? Okay, so this is one case, and what's next? What's missing? Resource dependency is done, attribute difference is done, precedence order done, variables is done, variable block and all. This is also done. Everything is done. So only we are left with Terraform state file. Okay, mutable, immutable already explained. Lifecycle is also done, right? Okay, ignore changes also done. So yeah, let us talk about Terraform state file. Okay, so we have one command called Terraform show. If I'll use this command Terraform show, what it will display, it will display the current state file. I mean whatever is stored in our state file out of these two resources, that will be displayed. Okay, if you'll open the state file, here we can see the same content. See, the output is Mr. Mustaf. Okay, and then where is our file name, pets.txt. Okay, these details. Okay, so state terraform.show command will help us to get the complete information of the resources. Whatever resources has been created by Terraform, we can see them by using Terraform show command. Okay, so apart from this, as we have already discussed about state file, right? So what is state file? Okay, state file is something configured in terms of JSON file. This is JSON format. Okay, whatever information we are seeing in state file is about JSON format. JSON is also one of the kind of language for outputs or for writing. Okay, so we have JSON, we have YAML, we have HCL. So as part of training, we'll be using YML or YAML, both are same. Okay, and HCL only. ఎందుకంటే JSON will be quite complicated, means curly braces పెట్టాలి, we need to add the quotations, everything. Okay, so in order to avoid that, we'll be using YAML or HCL. HCL will be used only for Terraform. YAML will be used for Docker as well as Ansible for Kubernetes. Okay, so Terraform state file is the actual blueprint of our existing environment. What is Terraform state file? This is actual blueprint of our existing infrastructure, whatever Terraform has been created. So whatever changes Terraform will do, that will be recorded in the state file. So now the question is, where can we store the state file? For example, within one project, there might be multiple users. Okay, project low, not only one user will be using the Terraform. There might be multiple users who will be working on Terraform. Okay, in that case, if this state file is stored in my local, as of now this state file is in my local machine, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, so if the state file is stored in my local machine, then it will be very difficult for the other users to use the same file. So generally the best practice what we follow is storing this state file in the backends, remote backends. Remote backends can be S3 bucket. S3 bucket is one of our backend. Okay, and HashiCorp provider will also HashiCorp will also provide one backend to store the Terraform state files. So always Terraform state files should be stored in any of the backend resources. It can be S3. As part of training, we'll use S3 only. So try to stick with S3 only. So where do we store our state files? It will be on S3. Okay, so we will not be storing our Terraform state files in GitHub and all, because GitHub and all, again, that's not the best practice. It should not be centrally saved because it might contain some sensitive data as well. Okay, and each and every detail study, so we don't want to save our state files in our central repositories. This should be only saved in the backends, remote backends, that is S3. Okay, so that is one of the best practice. So if suppose I have shared the state file with Subhiram Reddy or Pawan Chaitanya, okay, and if both of them are trying to execute my script at the same point of time, either they got state file on they both have the main.tf file, okay, and if they are trying to execute Terraform apply command at the same point of time, then what will happen? Which one will get executed? Same time, same fraction of seconds, there is no change. Then what will happen? So basically, what will happen is Terraform will not execute. Terraform will throw some unexpected errors in that case. Okay, so we have something called state file lockings. Okay, so we have something called state file locking, means no multiple users can execute Terraform template at the same point of time. That's how we need to protect our state file as well. Okay, because we don't want any kind of unwanted or unexpected errors. Okay, so we have Terraform state file lockings as well. That part we'll discuss in later sessions. Okay, as of now, just understand that state file is a blueprint of our current infrastructure, whatever Terraform has been managed, I mean created by Terraform. Okay, and these state files should be stored in the remote backends, that is S3. Okay, and we need to have the Terraform state file locking so that no multiple users can execute our resource file at the same point of time. Okay, so remember the 3 points, try to write down notes as well. Okay, apart from that, we have some of the important points of state files. Okay, means with the help of state file, I mean there are a lot of benefits with the help of state files. State files unte emaitadi, each and every time it will not try to download all the dependencies. Okay, it will try to cache our data, and the performance to execute our template will be much better if we have state files. Okay, as well as with the help of state files we can use, I mean multiple users can have the state files and execute our templates. Okay, so there are a lot of benefits with the help of state files as well, so I will share this. Try to read this, then you will be understanding. Okay, apart from this, I think we have covered much things as of now. So state file backends, and we'll work on creation of AWS. As of now, we have worked on only two resources, that is local and random. So we'll work on AWS. Okay, so try to get some hand dirty with the Terraform basics, variables, and all other stuff, whatever we have seen in last three sessions. Okay, if you have any questions, then let me know, guys. Okay, I think we are good. So let me stop recording. Be online. I want to talk. Okay.